We discussed last time, we're on page Kuf Tez Zayin, middle of learning about Anova. We discussed last time that when a person realizes that he has a talent or an ability or a maila or a midah taiva that others don't have, he should look at it like he's one of the misharsim, he's one of the officers in the staff of a palace. And he's not just if it's his job to open the door, it's not just his job to open the door for himself. It's his job each person participates in the running of the whole bayis. So the baker doesn't just bake for himself. The butler doesn't just open the door for himself. So similarly, the one that has chachma doesn't keep it to himself, you teach it to other people. A person that has different midas and different mailas, someone who HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him the bracha that he's wealthy, so he shares that wealth with others. He doesn't just look at it that Hashem sent it to me. So Vihine, the second paragraph on page Kuf Tez Zayin. Vihine zeho iyun v'hahizbainanus. This is the thought. Haroi l'kol ish asher sichla yashar. That's ro'oi. He talks pretty strongly here. That's ro'oi for any man whose intellect is straight, any man who thinks straight, v'lo misakesh, and is not crooked, is not twisted. If a person thinks clearly, he recognizes this. When this becomes completely clear to a person, that the milos that I have are God-given milos, and they're not about me, I should just appreciate that Hashem gave them to me, then he'll be called a true anav, that in his heart and inside of himself he's an anav. What's the difference, Shmaya, between belibay and bekirbay? Belibay means in his heart, bekirbay means inside of him. So the kirbay, I think, means in his body. Like the kerev is like the stomach. I think it means the kirbayu ukra'ayim. I think it means that you could know something in your heart, but not in your body. Like a lot of times our emunah and bitachon is like that. That we know that our lives are completely in the hands of Hashem. We know that at any moment Hashem we could cease to be alive. It happens sometimes. And yet, when things happen, we get nervous anyway, right? No, we do get nervous sometimes. Getting a job, if a person loses his job or is trying to take an interview for a job, these kind of things. People get nervous about these things. What are you nervous about? The same one that's pumping air into your lungs right now is going to get you the right job. Like, what's the problem? Okay, and there's nobody in our world that doubts that that's the case. It's just that the lave feeling it and the body feeling it are not always the same. So that's what I think he means, that it's something that has to penetrate the libay ubekirbai. V'hu ke'inyan David she'amar leMichal. This is like David who said to Michal bas Shaul, v'hayisi shafal be'enai. I will be low in my eyes. In other words, David said, I do not think highly of myself. What should a person, what motivates you to get up in the morning if you don't think highly of yourself? You've been wondering that. What? Yeah, right. What motivates you to get up in the morning in the summer? What motivates you to put yourself forward? Yeah, that's a good point. Musser! We're making a huge mistake in our understanding of how to live life. Mesilas Yesharim, do you realize, I wanted to point this out to you. I was learning with the Chabura last night. We were having Hana from this Ha'ara. Mesilas Yesharim has this whole parak about being humble, right? Basically, the entire parak is focused on don't think you're anything special. Okay? And not once does he say, and if that makes you unhappy, like as if you sat down and said, Rabbeinu Moshe Chaim Litzatah, please tell me how I'm supposed to smile after I read that parak on Anava. That you basically told me that I have not a shred of anything to be proud of. Like it's not even a kasha to him. You think he walked around like depressed? Doesn't seem that way. If you read the Sefer, you could cry from how exuberant he is. But he didn't believe that he had any milas at all. You think he wasn't an Anav? I think we could assume he was an Anav, right? So that means that he didn't think that he had any milas at all. Anything that he had was given to him by Hashem. He has nothing to show for himself. Feels good? And he didn't even ask, like nowadays, in 2026, he'll be like, but what should we do if it's going to hurt our self-esteem, right? He doesn't have that issue. You know why? Because he knew the right way that we're supposed to think about ourselves. We live in a world where we are always measuring. How did I do with this? How did I do with that? Where am I up to? Where am I up to? What's my status with my friends? What's my status with my family? What's my status in school? What's my status in the Beis Medrash? What's my status with Hashem? What does Hashem think of me? What do you think of me? What do you think of me? What do they think of me? What do I think of me? But we're always measuring. We're giving ourselves scores. Ramchal would hear you talk that way. He'd be like, I don't know what you're doing. You don't walk around feeling good about yourself because of what you did. You walk around feeling good about yourself because of who you are. You are a son of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Banim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem. You are connected to the Creator of the world, who loves you and gives you bracha and wants you to be happy. That's a reason to be happy. You are blessed with many milas from Hashem, presents from Hashem. He gave you certain milas. That's a reason to be happy. Yeah, but last night I forgot to daven Ma'ariv. Okay, I'm not saying amazing. Wow, you forgot to daven Ma'ariv? That's awesome. If you did forget to daven Ma'ariv, don't forget to say Sfira. But the point is that we spend our whole lives on this roller coaster of measuring ourselves. If we didn't do an Aveira in the last 6 hours, and we showed up to what we were supposed to, we give ourselves a check. If we did an Aveira, we didn't show up to what we were supposed to, X. Stop. We're trying hard. We have to grow. It's true that when we do well, good things happen. When we don't do well, good things hesitate for happening. But that's not the measure of who and what I am. Too often, a guy misses davening, and instead of thinking about how to have a good day despite that, and how to fix that for tomorrow, he gets lost in the mud of how he feels about himself for missing davening. That was not a conversation that the Ramchal had with himself. When he missed davening, he was like, okay, I missed davening. Do I want to miss davening? I do not. I know that I get tremendously closer to Hashem, and my tefillah is answered when I show up to davening. So I don't want that for myself, which I do about it. Or maybe I'm going to try this or that. I'll make sure my screens are off by midnight tonight. Okay, good plan. On with the day. You had an issue, you made a plan, you move on. What if you have an issue that you don't have a plan for? I find myself doing the wrong thing. I find myself missing this or doing this aveira or this time and time again. I can't control myself. Okay, so now I have a long-term plan. I have to work on this long-term. But I'm still a guy that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose. I'm still a son to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm still a tremendous person with a neshama that's larger than I can imagine. That's who I am. And I have an issue I have to deal with. I'm under construction. But this idea that we have, that we spend our lives giving ourselves... You guys are concerned if you're going to get an A or a B or a C in any given class? I don't care about that. I care that before you go to sleep at night, you mark yourself with an A, B, or C. That's the part that's not good. So Shmai is thinking, one second, you should never check yourself, right? You should never measure. You should never know where you're up to. Yeah, of course you have to do that. But you have to stop tying it so so tightly with your identity. You're a good guy that's doing the best that you can in a world of people that most of the world is unaware of Hashem. He has a few elite people that are focused on him. You're one of them, and you're trying to do the right thing. That's awesome. Oh, then I'm not going to work on anything. I give up. Then I'm good. What do I have to do? I'm going to put up my feet. No, I don't want that for myself. And I have a responsibility. And I recognize that I have a responsibility. And I'm motivated not by guilt, not because I'm giving myself X's. I'm motivated by the fact that, first of all, I want what God has to offer. And second of all, I recognize that I carry responsibility. And I'm a man, and I step up to my responsibilities. But not because if I don't do that, I hate when people say this. Someone told me recently, I go to shul because if I don't go, I'm going to feel guilty. I almost feel like telling the person not to go. It's an unhealthy relationship with your Yiddishkeit. The Ramchal writes that you should not give yourself credit for anything. You know why he could write that? Because he has a healthy relationship with his Yiddishkeit. Because despite everything, even if he has no milas, he knows he's unbelievably loved by Hashem, and that everything that he does is important. Okay, then he could be an anav. In fact, anivus gives a person simcha. A person that's wrapped up in their ego and how everyone's treating them lives a miserable life. If you know people like that, you know they're miserable. They're miserable. They're getting colitis because their stomachs are so stressed, and they're getting migraines because they're so wrapped up in their negativity. I'm like, that's not life. So that's very important to notice what's missing in this parak. As we go through the parak, notice how much is missing. There's like this gap, there's this vacuum. The Ramchal does not talk about, oh really, if I'm nothing, so why should I live? He doesn't have that kasha. Isn't that amazing? Because he's not crazy like we are. We're crazy. You know these like magazine articles sometimes, I'm sure they have this online also, where they'll like rate people. You know, sometimes even with a thumbs up, thumbs down. You know what I mean? They'll be like sports players or entertainers or actors or politicians. They'll be like, these thumbs up, these thumbs down. You know, like this is our world. We're rating everything. Polls, you know, the president's popularity. If it could even go any lower, went even lower. You know, we're rating, we're measuring. Right? You have to stop measuring so much. Just stop. How many times? You do it. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to me also. You give yourself checks and X's, right? People get totally lost in themselves. How am I doing? Where am I up to? You see that he doesn't do that. The Amr Zuchrein and Levracha Chazal say, "Kama gedolim nimoiche haruach." Such an ironic phrase. How great, how huge humble people are. It's like people that make themselves small are huge. Shebizman shebeis hamikdash kayim, when the Beis Hamikdash was standing, Adam makriv oila, a person brings a carbon oila, schar oila biyada, he has the schar, bringing a carbon oila. Mincha, he brings a carbon mincha, schar mincha biyada, he has the schar for a carbon mincha. Avol mi shedaita ishvela olav, but someone whose das is low, someone who's not walking around with his head in the clouds, thinking like he is the best, God's gift to humanity. Mala olav akasav, the Torah considers him ki ilu hikriv kol hakarbanos kulam, as if he brought all the karbanos. Shenemar, as the pasuk says in Tehillim, zivchei Elokim, all the karbanos of Hashem, ruach nishbara, is a broken ruach. Broken doesn't mean shattered. Broken means that you don't consider yourself whole. You consider yourself that you're dependent on others. You have things that I need, I have things that you need, and we both have things that we need from Hashem. That's nishbara. Hareze shevach shal nemoiche haruach. That's the praise of humble people. Shehem anovim belibam umachshavtam, that they are humble in their hearts. and in their thoughts. Why is a humble person like someone who brings all the karbonos? It's just like, you think Chazal just like randomly chose, like, what would be a good thing? Yeah, I guess bringing all the karbonos would be a good thing. Okay, someone who's humble is like they brought all the karbonos. Why? Maybe someone that's humble is like he fasted on Yom Kippur. Someone that's humble is like he learned the whole Shavuos night. I don't know. Why did you pick this? I think this gets back to what we talked about Anava a while ago. The real idea of Anava is that I don't live my life that it's about me. I'm not just here to service myself. I'm here to serve. A humble person, his whole focus is not himself. This even gets back to the conversation that we just had. When we spend our day checking and Xing ourselves, this is not just a religious thing, by the way. When you go to the upstairs to the dining room and you sit down with the guys and you schmooze and you eat supper, most people don't know this, but I know what goes on in your mind. When you get up after schmoozing with the guys, you rate the conversation. Did you say anything funny? Are you connected with the guys? Do you have any friends? Do they care about what you think? Okay, you know, not everyone, but many people, they're rating. Check, check, X, check. When a person does that, the pshat is that they're focused on themselves. Someone sits down to a conversation, and his conversation is focused on, what can I do to make this guy smile? How can I be there for this guy? How can I serve this guy? When he gets up, he's not measuring himself. It's not about him. He's here to give. He's here to share. It's a different focus. And I know, Shmaya, because I know how your mind works, you're thinking, yeah, he's measuring if he did that well. But even that's not true. No, because he does the best he can. He's here to serve. He puts himself out there, and then he goes on to do the next thing. It took me years after speaking to not rate the speech to myself. Okay, I spoke on Shabbos. It was a good speech, I thought. And get back to my seat, start Musaf. I used to have this issue that during Musaf, I'm like, it was pretty good. It wasn't so good. I wonder if this guy liked it. It's a natural thing. You know, you speak in public. You want to make sure that...
Wouldn't rating be a positive if it helps you do it better the next time?
It depends how you rate. There's a rating where like my identity depends on it, and then there's a more objective rating that like, okay, this is my project, this is my business. In any business, you sit down with your project managers and you say, okay, how can we do the business better? But it's not like if we're doing bad, we're bad. And if we're doing well, then we're amazing, you know? And the roller coaster is amazing because, you know, how many guys in the first few days of this man are convinced that they're both Reb Chaim and Reb Baruch Ber wrapped up in one because they had an amazing first 3 days of this man. That's also the same thing. When everything is based on your performance, you don't have an objective view of yourself. The objective view is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us kaiches. We try to use them to the best of our ability. Now you're right, in my process of using it, I may sit down and say, okay, how can I do better? I've noticed that I enjoy learning B'kiyas more than learning B'iyum. Maybe I'll focus more on that. And so I'll strategize, just like I would if I owned a business. All right, let's stop here.